Hi there, and welcome to Industry Innovators. My name is Nicole Carey, and today we're going to be going over a really tough topic. So, we're going to be talking about terminating someone who's on leave or is currently on light duties. We'll walk through when it's legally acceptable, what red flags to watch for, and how to handle these situations with confidence and compassion. So, like I mentioned, my name is Nicole Carey, and I'm a senior HR consultant here at the HR Advantage. We're a team that takes care of HR payroll, health and safety, and compliance so that business owners can focus on actually running their business. We don't just hand over templates and throw legal jargon at you. We really like to roll up our sleeves and work alongside our clients to ensure that they're getting real results. Our goal is quite simple. We take HR and compliance off your plate and handle it proactively so that you're never stuck with surprises or last minute scrambles. So, one of the most common and confusing questions that we get from employers is, can I fire someone who's off sick, on modified duties, or on a leave? And the short answer is sometimes. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but not because of the leave or the injury itself. It's really more complex than that simple answer. So we're going to address this at a very high level during this presentation, and I just can't reiterate this enough that if you're ever unsure about a termination, you need to seek help, whether it's from a lawyer or an HR professional, and really consider the legislation that impacts you, whether it's Alberta Employment Standards, human rights, occupational health and safety, whatever legislation applies to your situation. If you mess up a termination, and specifically a termination when an employee is on leave or on light duties, it can be incredibly costly in a financial aspect as well as a reputational aspect. So we're going to lay out the boundaries so you know where you stand and hopefully provide some high level help for these situations. All right, so let's go over protected leaves in Alberta. So in Alberta, certain leaves are legally protected, and what they are unpaid job protected leaves. And that means you cannot terminate an employee because they're taking that leave. So if an employee is on maternity leave, they cannot be terminated because they took a maternity leave. Other examples include parental leave, compassionate care, bereavement reservist, medical leave due to illness or injury, domestic violence leave. There is a full list on the Alberta Employment Standards website. If you're outside of Alberta, your province has one, I guarantee it. It's really important that you know what the leaves are and what your obligations are if an employee is on those leaves. So I encourage you to check that out. But what it means is you don't have to pay them during the leave unless your policy says otherwise. And a really good example is like compassionate care leave. Some policies, internal policies say that it is, for example, paid 3 days, whereas Alberta Employment Standards says unpaid 3. So really just align with what your policy says and what is required, the minimum standards for employment standards. You cannot contract out of employment standards minimum, but you can enhance them. And that's a really good example. Bereavement under Alberta Employment Standards is 3 days unpaid. A lot of employers we see offer 3 paid days. So you can always go above. Really just know what's obligated, what you're obligated to follow based on employment standards, and what is in your policies and procedures. So their job also must be there when they come back when they're on this leave. That is important to know when, for example, when you're on maternity leave, that job or a similar job should be waiting for them when they return. Check out employment standards for details and the requirements and duration for all those job protected leaves in Alberta. So we hear this term thrown a lot, light duties. So what are light duties? Light duties is if someone is injured at work or otherwise and has medical restrictions in order to do their job. So you must accommodate these, whatever these restrictions are, to the point of undue hardship. That might mean offering light duties, adjusted hours, or alternative tasks. I will stop here and say that if you cannot reasonably accommodate, you must document it. Is it too cost prohibitive? Is there a safety component? Is there availability of work, for example? Or if there's other factors, you just need to show that you tried and you need to document everything. So light duties doesn't mean made up busy work forever. It means finding safe, useful work within those medical restrictions until that employee has recovered. So where possible, have the employee go to their medical care provider to fill out a functional abilities form. I use the one on the Government of Alberta website. Pair that with a job description so that the physician knows what the role might entail and what duties might be accommodated. Especially consider things like if they have to sit all day, stand all day, lift, twist, bend, any of those things in terms of the functional ability to do the role. The important thing to know is HR professionals and business owners typically, unless you are a doctor, are not doctors. So we cannot even begin to diagnose or know what's appropriate for various injuries or issues. And actually, we're not even entitled to know about the diagnosis. We're only entitled to know how that employee's modified work duties affect the role and the job site and what we can do as employers to accommodate them. So we need their team to determine what they need, and then it's up to us to know how that works within the business and how we can accommodate them. So when is termination allowed? So you can terminate someone who's on leave or late duties, but only if it meets certain requirements. So if it's unrelated to the leave or injury, so for example, if a specific department of your business shuts down or your entire business shuts down, or there's documented performance issues that started before the leave, although that's trickier to prove, obviously, right? You have to ensure that you have proper documentation. If you can't show a clear, non-discriminatory reason, it will look like you fired them for being sick or injured or being on that leave. You also must provide correct notice or pay. Protected leave doesn't block you from ending employment, but you still have to follow Alberta termination rules, either written notice, pay in lieu of, working notice, that kind of thing. So always follow the Alberta Employment Standards minimum and then common law reasonable notice on top of that. So an example here is there's a construction company that's downsizing and they're eliminating positions, and one of the workers in that role happens to be on a parental leave. You can end the job, but you must show that the whole role is gone, not just theirs. So if it's a estimator, for example, you must show that the role has been eliminated. All the estimators no longer work there. And again, just document, especially with these tricky terminations. So another consideration when you're terminating anyone, especially someone who's on a leave, is to always consider human rights. Firing someone because of illness, disability, pregnancy, family status, or any of the other protected grounds can trigger a human rights complaint. These cases can be expensive and damaging to your reputation, and they take a ton of time. So always separate the reason for the termination from the fact that they're on leave. Ask yourself a simple question. Would I be making the same decision if they were in front of me right now working? If the answer is no, don't proceed. I can guarantee you it's not worth the headache. So some do's and don'ts when you're considering termination when someone's on leave. Do, say it with me, say it again for the people in the back, document those performance issues. Document. If there's any restructuring decisions, any performance issues, and all attempts to accommodate, make sure it's documented and in writing. Don't rush to terminate just because someone's away longer than you'd like. Really sit back and look, how does that actually impact my business? And if they're gone, they're typically not getting paid. So let them be off, make those strategic decisions, and work out a way to terminate them in an effective way. Don't rush to make that decision. Do communicate clearly with employees on leave. Check in without pressuring them. You shouldn't check in too much or too often, but just setting that expectation before the employee is on leave is a really good thing to do. Ask them what their communication preferences are. Some employees want to know about organizational changes, some don't. So check in where appropriate, never pressuring. And don't cut them off from company updates or make them feel like they've been replaced if that's not the decision that you're going with. Really, because if that employee returns, you want them to return as a part of your team. So lead with compassion and don't cut them off. So as far as leadership training, supervisors and managers are often the first to feel frustrated when someone is away, and I get it. You've lost a person from your team. Even if you do have a replacement, they typically don't fit the same mold as that prior person. And that's where problems can really start, is when we start to feel that frustration. So the first thing to train people on, especially your leaders, is to understand what protected leaves actually mean and recognize the duty that employers have to either accommodate, if we're talking about modified duties, or what that leave looks like and how we handle them coming back. Training about handling conversations about return to work plans with respect and sensitivity is so incredibly important. They really want to avoid casual comments that they might make in conversations like, we might not need you anymore, which can create additional legal risk. When in doubt, always reach out. We can help, or you can check out our other industry innovators presentations. We have another one on terminations that would be a great resource if that's what you want to go through. So the wrap up is, yes, you can fire someone who's on a leave or late duties, but not because of the leave or the modified work duties itself. The safest approach is to document everything and separate the reason for termination from the actual absence. Follow any legislative notice or rules that apply to your situation. Always follow Alberta Employment Standards minimum, of course, when we're discussing termination, and then common law reasonable notice on top of that, especially for these tricky ones. So at the end of the day, the goal isn't just to stay legal. That's obviously one goal for sure, but we also want to treat people fairly while protecting your business. So clear communication, good documentation, they will always be your best tools, especially in these situations. Terminating someone is never easy, but especially when they're on leave, but it can be done properly. And with the right documentation, timing, and communication, you can really protect your business while still treating people with fairness and respect. As always, the key here is clarity, clear reasoning, clear process, and clear documentation. I want to thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate anyone who's logged in and taken a look at this video. If you'd like help reviewing any of your termination practices, or if you need help navigating a specifically complex situation, feel free to connect with anyone on our team at hello@hradvantageservices.com, or you can visit our website at hradvantageservices.com. Mackenzie and I are very active on LinkedIn, and we love to chat with people there, so feel free to drop us a line if you're ever in that side of the world. We're here to help you handle the hard stuff the right way. It's not easy. Someone's got to do it, and we're here to help you do it right. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Industry Innovators, and we hope to see you again soon.